Hello, everyone, and welcome to GP Tuesday. Thank you all so much for coming. This event is a wonderful event. Every single week, we bring you education from leaders in the AI space. I want to tell you a little bit about what is GP Tuesday. GP Tuesday is a weekly AI event where we bring together AI engineers, researchers, and people simply looking to learn more about AI so that we can all work together to stay ahead of the AI wave of change. It's coming very fast, so by staying together as a community, we can all continue to learn. So thank you all so much again for coming. Today we have a very special speaker. We have Sheerin. Let's give it up, 100%. She's going to be teaching us about how to unleash the power of the Azure AI Studio, right? And before I take too much of your time, let's give it up again for Jen.
Thank you. Thank you, Grant, for having me, and thank you all for coming out to listen to me talk about Azure, my favorite topic. So, these slides are going fast. My name is Jen Sheerin, as you heard. I work at Microsoft. It's pretty cool. I get my own short link on my name. So if you want to connect, you can go there to connect with me on LinkedIn. So I would like to tell you maybe a little bit about what I do, because titles don't usually share what, and it's a big global company, so it's kind of hard. So every day I work with customers to deploy, to find solutions, architect solutions for them in Azure, general Azure, which includes, like you all, I'm focusing on AI. And so that includes the Azure AI, Open AI services. So show of hands, who's done something in Azure, knows something about Azure, knows how to spell it. Yeah. All right, so we have a broad group, which is good. This is why I love this community, and I'm a regular here. So I'll try to sort of share a little less tech in the process so that we could kind of all level set, right? So the first thing we're going to do is I'll tell you a little bit about what Azure AI Studio is. And then the rest of it is pretty much demos, right? So I only have a few slides because I want to show you, to me, that's the most important thing, showing. And we're going to walk through. We're going to walk through setting up a new AI Studio hub and a project and go through it all. So just for the folks that's never seen it, the Azure AI Studio became generally available in May. Yeah, a couple of months ago, May. It was Microsoft Build was announced. It was being, in preview for a while. It had some other names, some confusion, but this is the product right now. That's kind of what it looks like a little bit, but you'll see more. The URL is ai.azure.com. So it is a web-based access. So just like a portal, and this is what it does. So it's this single pane for developers, data scientists. I told you a lot of what I do is I bring enterprises concept from AI concepts into production. Usually when you get to that point, you've got like the security folks, the network engineers, the cloud solution architect, the developers, and maybe a data scientist all in the same room in the same meeting. And typically they don't talk to each other. So for the first time, they're meeting and you've got all these different perspectives, and security wants to make sure it's secure. They need to, network and cloud architects need to know that they're governing and they can manage all this. They don't want, rogue actors coming in or accidentally leaving stuff open and somebody jumping in. So there's a lot of people that need to make this happen. And, this is usually more of a therapy session than an actual solution session, but it works out. So you have this unified platform that you can have all the resources that you need. So this is all running in the cloud in Azure. And as you can imagine, you're going to need some compute, some GPUs, those hardware type stuff to run your model. You're going to need a model, right? you're probably, well, what's going on here? Probably going to want to bring your own data, right? You're building a RAG pattern. You may want to bring your own data, do some searches, some chunking. So the whole life cycle of your development has processes you need to evaluate, reiterate, test, and then eventually you get to the point where you want to deploy it. And you may want to deploy that in your own endpoint. You may want to deploy that on an API, and you may have regulation that says you need to keep all of that private, right? So some of the tips and tricks I'm going to show you in the end, hopefully we get to that and we don't run out of time, is a little bit of that. And then, of course, with Azure, one of the great things about Microsoft is a responsible AI, and I'm not just saying that because I work there. The transparency and the tools that are built into the studio is fantastic. So hopefully you will see that and you'll tell me about it as we move along. So this is the architecture of what the AI studio looks like. So up at the top left, the AI hub resource. This is the main guy. The hub is the one-to-many. You have where you can upload your data, your storage, connections, your compute, your governance, so your security, right? And then the AI services down at the bottom there, those are the things you need. So you have things, we had a little bit of a name change recently. So it used to be called Cognitive Search, if you ever heard about that. It's now called AI Search, right? Because everything else was rebranded to AI Search. But things like vision and text-to-speech, search were all in existence for a long time. And those are services that complement your model, right? And so in addition to the Azure OpenAI, you also have those services. So all of those services, and then to the right, you have the AI project. So the project is where you can have multiple projects going to the same hub. So you can actually share some of those resources that you have in the hub, not have to spin up more, keep your costs down, right? You can do these isolated. So let's say you have one team working on this project, the developers, you give them permissions, only them to have their work. They're not interfering with anyone else's work. You have another project to do. A different team is working on that. And so that's the way you can have your components. And we'll take a look at this because this is a pretty boring slide. So let's dive right into it. Everyone can hear me okay, right? Yeah, good. All right, so let's get rid of this. And then we'll bring in the superstar. And I apologize about the font. I'm trying to keep it big so that we could see it. All right, so let's start with the home button. So if you went to ai.azure.com for the first time, you don't need to have anything purchased or anything like that ahead of time. You can actually get access to these top level getting started here, right? So let's take a little tour. I have some projects, so it'll show you your recent projects, but I want you to see that right at the get-go, you can have links to all the documentation to get you started. If you're brand new, this is really useful. Also, if you're GUI, you're just learning. And this is some of the top models showing up here. And then remember those services I was talking about, speech, language, translator, vision, content safety, and then even some more documentation further down and a link to a video and a tutorial. So this is the home place to get you started, and good links, and all of that is free, right? Right off the bat. All right, so let's go here, the model catalog. All right, so this is pretty cool. Right here, you can see that we have this many models, over 1,700 models in Azure for you, right? And I can keep scrolling, but there's a long list. So why don't we just look at this a little bit differently? You can do some filters. So there's a collection, And as you can see, you can sort by some companies. Just give you an idea what's available. You can also filter by deployment options. So you can do managed compute or serverless IP. You can do sort by inference tasking. And I'm scrolling through so you can take a look. Everybody can see these texts fine, right? All right. So those are quite a pretty big list of options here, right? And then also fine-tuning. You also have a category there that you can scroll down. So you can come in here, you can take a look, you can see what model you want, you can go ahead and deploy it. And we'll do that, we'll deploy it. So this other one's really cool. So you ever wonder which one's better for your use case? Which model should you use? Should I use GPT-4? Oh, should I use GPT-3.5? Should I use, I don't know, Cohere? Look at this cool thing here. So this is a benchmark model. It's got all of them right now, so the chart's really busy. But just like we filtered before, you can filter. Here is the collection down here. You can see there's a whole list of that's on the chart, and you can filter out and compare, right? And then you're wondering, well, how do I know what that means, right? So these are the data sets, and then these are the metrics. So these are the things that the benchmark was done on, right? So you can get this idea on, maybe you think that groundedness is not important to you for your model, right? For your app that you're building. Then maybe you just want accuracy. Then you can choose maybe a model that's maybe not as expensive, right? To accommodate that, right? So this will help you get, make some intelligent choices on what you want to do. And so there's a whole long list there. And I will invite you to go there and check it out because there's a lot here and the screen's not big enough for you to see the whole thing really well. But you can compare in a different format here, and I can go across, right? As we can imagine, GPT-4o is at the top, right? So these two things that I just showed you, in addition to prompt catalog, you can access this without having to buy anything freely. So you can just jump in there and take a look and try to figure out how this can best serve you. Sometimes you maybe just want to check the benchmarking, right? Okay, so let's move on. Unless there's any questions. You can ask questions in between, I don't mind. This is very casual group. So this is more of that OpenAI services stuff, but we'll go straight into the hub, right? You saw this before on the slide with the services. These are the same services that you saw before. So we're going to go through and I'm going to try to put this down. I don't know if I could type one-handed. You can still hear me? Okay, right. All right, so we're going to set up a new hub, right? And that's the first thing we need to do because remember, that's number one. That's the main spot. So I'm going to change this name here. I'm pretty sure I have another name like that. We can call this test. It will ask you, so obviously for a name, so before we do this, this is where we need to spend some money, right? So you need to have a subscription in Azure in order to set this up. Obviously some permissions to log in because you have the subscription, enter ID at least, and as well as you need to have access to the Azure OpenAI service. The Azure OpenAI service is gated currently, part of that whole responsible AI model with Microsoft. So you actually have to fill out this form and request access. And then usually it's a few business days and they'll get it. I have to do the same thing, even though I work there, so it's no different for me. And there's a whole laundry list of questions you answer about purpose and use and all of that. Everything in Azure, we give it a resource group. So I'm just going to throw it in there instead of making a new one. Location is region. So for those of you who are new in Azure, I'm going to go a little bit more in depth here. So the rest of you, if you could bear with me. Azure has regions all over the world, the globe. It's a fantastic globe with data centers all over the world. East US just happens to be one in DC. So you would want to pick a region that's close to you, location-wise, wherever you are. And then sometimes when you're doing disaster recovery and you're thinking about multiple regions, you may want to do some in another region where you have an office. So let's say you have an office in Asia, you would put one in Asia as well, right? So this here, so remember I said you need to have access to the Azure OpenAI service. This assumes I filled out the form, I got access, my subscription is allowed, right? And so we're going to create the new AI services here. And I'm also going to create a new search. I'm going to call it search dash text. And we'll do that. Great. Okay. All right. So you see this little spinning stuff there. This is going back in. It's going to check, make sure some of these things are really valuable. And what does it mean? Oh, made a mistake. Let's do that. So it checks the form to make sure that what you entered is valid. And it's not updating. Sorry, live demo. Apparently I didn't pay my homage to the demo gods this morning, so we are not getting very far. Okay. Bottom line, if I hit next, it will start to deploy and create the hub. It takes a little while, so I saved that step. I'm going to hit cancel here. And I went ahead and created this one ahead of time so we would have this. All right. So this is what it looks like. So I now have a new panel on the left, the blade of different resources. So before we didn't have, we had the getting started, right? Which I can collapse this so we don't have to look at that. And now you have this all projects and you have this chat and assistant, deployments, connections, compute instances, and users. So let's go to users, right? So if I go to users and I look at, I lost my mouse, 1 second. Inherit access. These are all my user accounts from Entra ID. So these are all the accounts that were set up in with my tenant and my identity. If you have Active Directory still somewhere, you would sync it into Entra ID. Right? And then here, you can set up a new user. So see if in the Azure AI Studio, it comes with these default roles. You can also set up custom roles. Now I'm saying Entra ID, which means it's Microsoft managed accounts, right? Which use conditional access and all of the security parameters that you have with logging in. So when you log into any, like Office, you have your login, you have to put your MFA, all of that is the same setup, right? So I have this developer account that I created, and I can pick that. It went out, it talked to Entra ID and said you exist, and then I can add it, right? And so it's that simple to add a new user. Compute instances, we don't have anything here yet, but we will later. Connections. Now, I do have several connections. When I created the hub, it actually spins up. Remember, it wanted to make sure that you had the OpenAI services. So it did the Azure AI search and the OpenAI, and then the AI services, And then I also had blob storage, right? And I will show you, as a matter of fact, I can show you this right now. If I go over to the resource group, this was the resource group here, you can see that these are the resources that got deployed when I created the hub. I have a little bit extra because I also have a project in this one, but actually I have another one I can show you. Hang on. Let's go to this one. Okay, so these were the resources that got created when I created the hub. Now, you can imagine that if you were not a developer, like a cloud architect or a security person, this stuff got created magically from the other portal by somebody else, and they're probably going to be freaking out. What's going on here, right? So you did have to have permissions to do that, by the way, but you can see where that conflict will start coming in, where everyone has to agree how these are going to be deployed, what names are going to be used, how are they going to be located, where, which subscription, if they're using multiple subscription. So there's a lot of folks involved in getting this, and we'll get into that. So all of these resources were deployed. So let's go back here to our connected, and they got connected up, right? Deployments here. In order to use the model, I needed to deploy a model. So all I did was I went to the deploy a model and picked a model. And internet might be a little slow right now, but these are all the models I have access to. And I hit confirm, and in a few minutes I had these models deployed, right? So I have a model. So let's go to chat and let's see what we can do. So let's pick 4.0, right? And you can say, right? So this is the plain vanilla GPT 4.0 answer, right? It has nothing personal there, right? Or private to my company, right? Okay, there is this link here, add your own data, right? And with this link, I could add, oh, this is so terrible, right? I can collapse this for a second. This is really small. Okay. So I can select a project. All right, hang on. I got ahead of myself. Let me go back. We'll come back to that. Sorry. All right, so we've tested our model. We know that it works, right? It's plain, it works. But now we want to build that project, right? So we're going to go back to this spot here, and we're going to go to projects, right? So this is where you can set up a new project, right? So you just give it a name, say create project, and you've got a project. That's it, all right? So if we go over here, I'm going to do the cooking show thing. I have the pre-created one. So what I want you to point out here is we have all these information here, easily accessible. So if I wanted to know which resource group in the portal this goes to, I can, right? So let's say I'm the cloud solution architect. I'm not a developer. I come in here and I see somebody created a whole bunch of resources. I can tie it back, right? I can also click right here to go to all my API keys from here. And see, it takes me right there. So let's go back one, right? And the other thing is, we were having a conversation about this, quotas, right? So everything has quotas, especially based in the world's GPU stature since the pandemic, right? So you may have a hard time figuring out what you have and what you don't have, right? So here's my usage, and here's my limit on my tokens, right? So if you want to know any of this stuff, it's readily accessible, right? And similarly, in the Azure portal, you can get the token for compute, GPU, and other resources, right? So, okay. All right. So the other thing is the project users. This helps you to manage the security here. Security folks like this because you have that user defined. And then more documentation and quick access, right? Pickup. So let's assume we've created this project and then we go into chat, right? Now, I pre-created, because you didn't want to watch me do all this, but I did add your own data and I uploaded a file. And still not looking really here. Okay. All right. So one of the cool things about this is I can bring my own data. So if I have a bunch of FAQs or stuff, URLs, wherever I have my current data, right? And I want to create this chat application to put on the web and have that search all my data and respond to queries, right? I can do that. So I have the ability to do all of this. They all lead into one place, the Azure AI search, because at the end of the day, whatever I do with this, I'm going to create an index, and that index lives in the Azure AI search. So if I wanted to upload the data, providing you have all the permissions right, I can just go here and it goes right into my documents and I can grab a document, right? So we're not going to do that. It takes PDFs and docs, right? So I've done that already, so we don't need to. You don't need to watch me take time to do that. But now, when I chat, I'm going to say, does my plan cover eyes? Because I uploaded a document from our Contoso sample HR system, right? And it has eyes. And why am I getting that? Ooh. Oh, right. Hang on. We're in the wrong deployment. That's why. Go back here. Oh, boy. I really didn't pay my homage to the demo gods. I swear it works. Right. Go back here. And chat. All right, we'll move on. I'll come back to that. All right, so the point I was trying to make with you there is that you can bring your own data and search on it. The other thing is you can use this tool. So we have tools down here, which you haven't seen yet. So code preview, right, will allow you to take this and spin up an instance and do VS Code. So for those that are more VS Coders, you can do that right here from within the studio and just go to an instance. The other thing we have is this really cool thing called prompt flow. And it allows you, and I'm just going to bring it up, and let's has a graphical representation of your flow and then really easy access to the information. So you can see right here, I have all the connections. Maybe I can pop this out a little bit. I can't really see on it. Not going. Try to make it a little bit smaller. Yeah, maybe you can see. So this graphical representation gives you this ability to kind of organize your thoughts while you're still trying to figure out what you're doing. If you click on this, it will go directly to the source, right? So you can see your code right here. You can make quick edits. And if you're iterating, it's very easy to keep going. So it's this tool that helps developers to really work fast. You have options here at the top. It's Python, you have prompts, you have LLM. So the point is, it's a very flexible tool. It's hoping to be able to accommodate all levels of no matter where you're at and get you quickly to deployment, right? You can do a lot of tracing as well. So I'm going to cancel this. Yeah. Okay. So one of the other things you can do if you got an error and you want to troubleshoot it, right? You can start a trace. And then from prompt flow, let's go back in here. I want to see. You have some options up here. So you can save your flow. And then once you save your flow, you'll be able to deploy it. So from right here, you can start the session and deploy it. You can also deploy it, so you can deploy it to an endpoint and start using it right away. You can also test it right here with this chat button, right? So while you're still in the screen, you can use the chat. It needs to start the session. And it probably powered off while I was waiting. Sorry about that. But you can start, just take my word for it, you can start a live chat. Say, oh, here we go. Right? And there's a chat session that pops up. And so you can actually, you made changes, maybe you adjusted your prompt, you want to figure out what, you can just go ahead and do that there.
Jen, I have a question about the prompt flow. So can you give an example of, so I understand previously you were showing if I upload my data, I can talk to my data. What does prompt flow allow me to do? What is this flow?
Yeah, it's just a tool to help you develop.
What does that mean?
So, so the thought process of your entire application that you're building. So let's just say this, you're building this chatbot, right? You've uploaded your data, you have inputs, right? So the input is telling you what type of application, it's a chat, right? And I've already created that search prior and it's tagged to this. And then these are just the representation of your actual code. So you're familiar with all the Python code, right? That's what this is. It's just another view for you to look at it. So you can make modifications here, and then you can test it. You can run it right here. So here's a run button, right? You could delete. So you're not having to go back and forth. You can do the same thing in VS Code, right? It's just a tool to allow you, to help you to test and code in the same pane. And the graph part is just a graphical representation to help you along if you're a graphical person. It doesn't suit everyone.
But the idea is to kind of, let's say, program a more specific conversational flow. So let's say I'm building, I don't know, a customer support agent, yeah? And I want to tell the agent, well, if somebody's calling about an invoice, or somebody's calling about a frequently asked question, or somebody's calling about, I don't know, delivery, like you will have different ways of responding. That what this helps you do.
You would still need to code that, right?
Yeah.
But it would help you to sort out your, probably help, if that works, if this works for you, help you sort it out, right? Because you have this graphical representation that you can move around too. Maybe you had it in the wrong order, right? And you weren't thinking about it that way. But yeah, this is all the prompts here, the output format, everything that's was popped in here from my pre-creation.
Does anybody else feel that when you're just starting out with a product and you go to a screen and there's basically hundreds of hierarchical options and choices to make, that it's too much to see when you're first starting, that you now are going to have to spend a half a day or maybe longer learning what all these screens are, what all the options are, and that there won't be clear explanations of what all the options are. And this is not just here. This is at the Azure AD. I know they recently renamed that, where it's even worse. It's at Google, it's at Meta, it's at AWS, it's everywhere. Could there not be a beginner screen, for instance, that says, here are the 10 most common use cases for this kind of product?
Mm-hmm.
And if you click here, we'll walk you through how to provision what you would need to set up a basic project so you can start working. And then as you go through it, you slowly learn what the other options are and how you can deploy them. But facing this, you're looking at potentially hours of frustrating navigation to figure out what it is that you need. And you're here because you have a job to do, not because you wanted to spend a day with the interface.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's in every modern deployment of a complicated product. No one's used AI that says, what's your use case? And then it would say, let me show you the basics of what you might need to do this job. Nobody's taken the top 10 or 20 basic use cases. I need to interpret some text. I need to do something with video. I need to interpret these sounds. Okay, you'll need this kind of device. Do you want a VM or do you want to do it in our system? You pick one or the other. You make 4 or 5 choices. So here's where you write code, here's where you test, go to work. And when you're ready for more options, click here, we'll explain them to you.
Mm-hmm.
Then you could get started working quickly. I was very frustrated in my recent endeavors, not with this in particular, but with any of them.
Yeah, yeah. It's very good feedback. It is a challenge that everyone's facing, and the world is moving really quickly. Everything I'm showing you here is today. I'm doing it live because I wanted to give you real screens that are today, because everything that happened 2 months ago, those videos, they changed some of the screens already, right? And this product is continue being developed. I will take your feedback and log it for you. I've heard that a lot of people don't like prompt flow. Traditional developers, I mean, you all are here, yeah.
I mean the whole thing.
Because the whole thing.
I don't dislike it. You obviously have what you need to do the job.
Yeah.
I need to get started better. I don't want to spend the day here figuring out what I need to select and deploy. I know what I need to select and deploy. I don't want to have to hunt through this.
Yeah, yeah. So this I'm showing you is demo because it's GUI and it's better to look at. But we do have other methods to deploy. We have infrastructure as code that can build all this for us with the click, put in some inputs, resource group names, all that, and it would be off and running and set up exactly the way we want it, right? The other thing that, I don't know about the other clouds, but in Azure, we have principles. We have something called the Cloud Foundation, and that we give you the best practices. We also have all of these accelerators, and usually in the docs, you'll get a click this button to deploy, and that will build you the template for what you need, so you don't have to do all this. It might take you some time to figure out what you did, right? Because you still need to know what you deployed, right? But we do have some easy buttons for you, and a lot of the documentations have what I'm showing you today on the setup, what we were creating. You can do it through code and just deploy it, and it'll be set up for you.
Another thing that they should do, if possible, is I know these change very rapidly. Microsoft Graph is an example. I needed the latest version of Graph to do some interaction with Azure configurations for a large enterprise company. ChatGPT did not have access to any of the recent versions of Graph, so could not help me in writing this code, and I was back to, and neither could Stack Overflow, neither could anywhere. The only place I could get the information of how to do it, I went to the Microsoft documentation. Actually, it was there. I was able to read and understand it and deploy it. But it would be helpful if OpenAI latest information. So there's always a system that always deploy the code, write the code for you properly in the latest version, or if you could specify the version.
We've heard you, and actually we have this thing called Copilot in the portal now. I don't know if you've used it.
And is it fully up to date, every update?
It's current. It's current because it goes against Graph and our docs, right? Yeah. And so if you use Copilot, and just in general, we have Copilot. We have, okay, so we call everything Copilot, all right? So we have Copilot for Azure. We have Copilot in Bing. So we'll take a step away from the studio for a minute to talk about this. We also have Copilot in Windows, right? There's this, you can't see that screen, but there's this generic Copilot here. Bring it up. It looks very similar to the one you used to on the web, right? This is the big version. I have a work because, you know, I'm an enterprise, logged in as my account, so I have a work. You also have Copilot in Word, in PowerPoint, in all of the Microsoft 365 products, including Teams. Some of them are slightly different depending on where you're asking the question, right? So in Teams, it will go out and read all of your 365 data because that's pulling from Graph. It's pulling from Graph. That is still protected by your credentials as an enterprise. We don't have anything to do with it. I couldn't look it up, right? But it's surrounded by that security, but it will query that and then use the information from the model to help you get the information you need, right? So in emails every day, I use, you know, Copilot to help me, right? Obviously, you have it to help you write stuff and do all the other things. All right, hang on. So then the I don't know. I'm not sure. I haven't tested that, but I'm going to go into, and I wasn't prepared for this, so you guys are going to have to be patient with me. I'm going to go here. I was working on some Terraform code here. We have this Copilot in VS Code, right? I'm on the dog food version, but you can get it too. So it's GitHub Copilot. And since it's GitHub Copilot, let's see if we could actually do something. So this is interesting because you said C#, and this is Terraform, which is not a Microsoft product. As a matter of fact, HashiCorp just got purchased by IBM. So non-Microsoft, right? So let me just start typing. Let's see. Okay. See that? Copilot did that for me, right? It suggested, now I can control enter and see all the suggestions and decide if I want to pick it, right? But it's giving me options, and I can also chat with it. So if I have an error, I can usually put my error in here and say, hey, I've got this error, and it will help me work it out. So I haven't tried it with C#, but I would suggest you get on board with this. If you just need to sign up in GitHub. It's all through GitHub.
You know if it works with Sheerin products?
With what?
Like
I have not tried it, but I wouldn't doubt it. It is actually the best Copilots. I've been using it since last year. I'm in the dog food version of Visual Studio Code. That's why mine looks green. And when I first started using it, it did not, it was quite annoying with the Terraform specifically because that is not a Microsoft product and it wasn't trained on it. What basically happened is it got trained on everything out there, on all the repos in GitHub, and it's now a superstar. Trust me, it's a superstar. So I would say out of all the Copilots, that's my most favorite because I can use that be most productive when quickly getting my code out if I need to. Highly recommend you trying that out. All right, so we were back to our prompt flow here. So this little deploy button, can give me the option to deploy this on a VM, right? To create that endpoint that I needed, and I can start using the chat app that I created here that quickly, right? So in less than an hour, we created this, and of course we need some new tuning and all of that, but it is possible to get you going quickly. The other thing that I wanted to show you was about the evaluation. So I pre-created this as well. It's not that difficult to set up. Wizard, click, 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 right, and go through. Evaluations allow you to bring your own data as well. So if you had like a set of maybe 10 questions and answers that you wanted to base on evaluation, you could do that. This was basically one-page document, but you can see here that I get metrics from my evaluation, right? So from a scoring perspective, I can evaluate the accuracy and fluency of my my queries. And then the other thing is it also gives you information on the responsible AI stuff. So you see here self-harm, violence, sexual reasons, right, hate. So you're actually able to verify that your app is, you know, being created without all of the things that you don't want to put out there, right? So it gives you a rating of high, low, and it actually talks about it as well. I know the screen's a little bit fuzzy, small, but please tell me if you want to see more. Happy to scroll. So high would be it actually found content that was. These are just high, low, like very high, very low. On the violence, on these scoring, these ones, the numbers, the smaller the number, the worse it is. The higher the number, the better it is.
What if I want violence? If I'm doing a video game that's shooting people, if I'm doing something that's an app that's sexy talk.
Yeah, so we have this thing called content filters here, right? And it allows you to create your custom content filter. So if you wanted to allow that, you can, right? So when you do create the content filter, we'll do this real quick here. You should be able to.
I put something in the Claude the other day, and I'm like, oh, I was going to do something to raise money for a political campaign. And they're like, I don't know, we can't do anything with that, right? We can't talk about raising money for a politician. The ethics of this are highly questionable, and we want nothing to do with it. I'm like, guess you can't get the daily news either.
Yeah. So you can set it to low. You can set it to low, which would, you know, you can say to allow it, right? And the threshold then becomes it's your custom list, right? If you want to block stuff, you can create a block list, but you can also set that threshold yourself. So this is fully customizable, right?
So it's not shoved down your throat. You can do what you want with it.
Exactly. I think that's been the Microsoft motto for the last, I don't know, few years, at least that I can remember. It's been open to being flexible. There's multiple ways to do one thing. Like I said, this is a GUI way. We can have infrastructure code, but yes, you have the ability to turn it off. See, annotate only, annotate block, right? So you can totally customize your filter and apply that filter, and then allow it, right? We went through deployments before, but what you see down here is this new one. So when I deployed the app in the prompt flow just now, when I hit deploy, it creates this custom endpoint. Notice it says endpoint, right? And the name, and then I can access this and be able to use, so this is my endpoint, right? I can get the URI and connect to it, right? It is publicly accessible right now. I can also run a quick test from here. If I wanted to, I can chat with it really quickly to make sure I can get some information about the consumption, right? So here's my keys, my REST endpoint. If I want Python or JavaScript, a couple options here, C#. Monitoring is in preview right now, has the ability to pull in so you can understand, you get insights on what your app is doing, right? Look, I had a 50%, oh, whoa, I had 2 violations as well. And different metrics here, very useful when you're trying to figure out what's going on in your environment. Makes everybody happy, completely to be able to tell. A lot of this stuff is all about transparency. You can go back in time as long as you want. Then there's logs. If you're troubleshooting a problem, you can pull up a whole bunch of logs here. So you can get error logs and a lot of good information for you to see. Yeah. The token count? This was the total request. So I only made 8 requests since I built this yesterday. And these are the token counts that I've used, right? So I put a very strict filter on it, and I did this to make sure you could see some options there. So I was being a little naughty when I was asking things. You have a bunch of stuff. It doesn't have a lot of data because it was fairly new in setting up. It's only like 3 or 4 days old. So it's low, but it will give you everything. Here's the prompt count, prompts. It showed you what I asked, right? So you know it actually did work, okay? Yeah, I knew you were going to ask me that. So if I go here to settings, so one of the nice things about this is it's integrated into Azure's cost, because remember, you're looking at it from here, but all those resources are built into Azure. So if I click here to view the cost, it will take me to the Azure portal, right, to see the costs. And there's a pretty A. And, oh, no. I'm not sure about that. That's a good question. I'll check into that and I'll get back to you on that. Okay. So right now the cost here is based on projects. So you can see that these are this actually on the resources. So I can group them by resources here, right? So I have a couple of choices. I'm not sure if you can get as granular as, I can get granular as daily, monthly, and accumulated, but but this is my cost, right? And it'll give me a breakout. So if I expanded on my storage account, I can see in detail exactly what is running. Also, Defender is in there because I have Defender set up in my subscription, but you can see every detail of every bandwidth. You know, there's egress and ingress charges from the network. Whatever is happening, you're going to find out about it. So it's quite granular from the perspective of understanding what you're paying for. But that's a good question. You might be able to create a custom.
Just throw it on the dashboard. Yeah, so on the dashboard, the Azure dashboard, first of all, Azure is super verbal. It's probably one of the best ones. So on the dashboard, you can get a dashboard, you can dashboard. If you want to do one that's a daily, or you want to do one that's kind of ad hoc in the sense of roll them up metrics. It's definitely, I know for a fact. So it's just a matter of you just setting up your dashboard. Right here, this is the standard stuff, right? If you want a custom dashboard,
yeah, but yep, that's right. But in addition to that, we have this thing called Copilot now that you can ask. and Copilot will tell you. So I haven't tested it lately, so I'm not going to demo it right now for you, but you will be able, you can go into Copilot and ask the questions instead of having to build this dashboard that he was talking about. So more and more coming with Azure, because Azure is a beast and it can be a lot to do to customize. There's a lot of information in there, but to get it out sometimes is very difficult. The goal of the engineering is to get the Copilot to be your advisor and run side by side with you while you're in Azure, so you can ask the questions and then have it answer for you natively, right? All right.
And that will be great.
Yeah.
Two things. So I'm an Azure fan, you know, even though I'm a Google, former Google, whatever. See, I'm Azure. That's why I got started on, right? So two things. One thing that doesn't get mentioned often is that Azure and Open API latency is much lower. So a lot of the stuff that you do, for instance, like when I'm doing a call from my server to OpenAI back, you will notice that there's a, I mean, Azure lives, OpenAI lives within that Azure environment. So I tend to notice that the feedback loop, the loopback time is much shorter. Also, my first voice AI application I built was in Azure because it was that time of shoring other than Google. So I can go over it. I can go via the API over the wire, come back in, or I can do a function calls within Azure to OpenAI, and it's just a shorter round trip. So that's one thing that that kind of made my voice TTS service that I created when I first started doing voice AI successful, because I was able to short circuit some of that loopback time. Also, like you said, as I mentioned earlier, Azure is super amazing at actually providing data, even if you didn't want it. It logs everything, right? It's just logging for everything. So if you're building on Azure, some apps it doesn't give you enough data for you to look at. I know for myself, when I build stuff within Azure, especially Azure AI Studio, the amount of information that provides for me, IOPS, disk ops, CPU utilization, everything that you can possibly imagine, you can get those metrics, extrapolate them, put them into dashboards, and see how your application performs. Then, you know, if you're conscious about, you know, uptime, things of that nature, you can put alerting on top of it to make sure that, okay, I'm having high CPU utilization, or I'm having high something that has to do with my API, whatever. You can get like, you set yourself alerts, receive alerts for incidents. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go.
No, that's good. It's all good information. Thank you. Good points. So the other thing I didn't mention about the cost is he just reminded me to set alert. You can create a budget and you can set the budget to cap it and say no more, or you can do an alert, right? If the budget is getting close. So you can control who gets what as well. Like you give this resource group, that's part of that governance we were talking about in security, right? If you have access only to the resource group with the resources in that resource group, and you set a cap on that resource group cannot be more. Nobody can deploy anything extra if you run out of money, right? They're done. Other things as well, right? So that's why governance is important, and you'll get the security teams and the cloud architect, and especially when you're building apps for like compliancy, you know, you have insurance companies or medical, they have HIPAA compliance, right? All of that compliance is already built into Azure. If you want to know why people come to Azure, that is why, because it's the one-stop shop. You have compliance built in. You saw Defender running on my my storage account that I just deployed, right? I didn't have to set that up. It's already a policy governing my subscription that says everything new gets created, Defender is on it, right? So this way you can ensure that your stuff is being protected by the policies and the compliance that your company desires, right? Whatever you need to handle. And that's a whole nother topic. I could talk about Azure all day long. So maybe we'll just go back into here. So one of the things, I think we covered all the tools. Indexes data. So the data was just a connection to my storage accounts, right? So this is everything connected. So I uploaded the file. That's the file I uploaded, and there's my vector search index. So what I want to do now, if you're okay to move on, if there are no questions, is I want to show you some tips and tricks about making this a little bit secure. Because if I go back here to all my hubs, you'll see I have a few, right? So we demoed this one today because it's public and I'm on the internet here showing you all of this. But I have these couple down here. Did you notice it says private? And it's locked down private, right? All the resources. That's typically what corporations want, right? They want their stuff private. If their users are connected already to Azure, they have a express route or a VPN connection, right? They don't need to go to the internet to get to this stuff, right? They can just go directly to Azure and access it. And this is where I wanted to show you a little bit more. So remember we were talking about these were the resources that are spun up, right? Now, when I build a private connection, and in general, right, I may still, I always do this, right? So we'll start at the bottom with the search service. The search service, you'll notice it says restricted at the top, right? A couple of things I always go to first, right? So identity. If I go to identity, by default, all of these resources that you deploy in Azure will be, the status will be off, right? So what I do is I turn this off and I say system assigned, which means that this creates a manage identity and enter ID specific for this resource. I delete this resource, it's gone. So this is giving its own identity, and I don't need to worry about anybody else using this identity, right? There's no password. It's the other cool thing. No password involved in this. You do have the ability to bring your own. So this one says user assign. User assign is the ability for you to bring your own. Some companies have requirements to bring their own assign identity and store them in key vaults and all that stuff. And this is where they would use that, right? So this is going to come together in a minute. So bear with me. So the identity, I turned that on. And now you see up here, it says it's manage identity by using Azure role-based access control, right? So keep that in mind, even if you don't know what it means. And then here, by default, actually, hang on. I'm going to go do a little quick comparison. 1 second. We're going to go to the GPT search. Let's do this. All right, so we'll go to services. So I can't find that right now. The magic of Azure, right? So here's my key, right? So my endpoint key, I have a screen protected. That's why you can't see the key right now, but this is giving you the keys and the endpoint that you can connect to, right? When you change it to RBAC, right, you no longer have access to the key. So all of a sudden now, I'm not accessing the key. I'm using the manage identity instead of an API key. I don't need to manage this key. I don't need to rotate this key. It's all, there's a lot of reasons why you would want to use a key, right? Not a key, sorry. And so let's go back to the search service. Let's go back here. All right, we'll go to Key Vault because I can get there quick enough. All right, so all of the resources very similar, right? Key Vault is not the right one to go to. Storage account, that's pretty good standby. You'll see, all right, so here's my keys, right? I have a storage account keys, right? And the point of this is I don't want to use this key. That's the default. I want to say no, and I want to use the manage identity instead. So by setting, sorry, 1 second. I need to go back to this search service and show you this the right way. This is the one we were at. Okay, sorry, I'm confusing you. All right, so if I go to keys, you will see that this is set to role-based access control. So now I'm using my manage identity, no more keys, right? The other thing I want to show you, these are my 3 best practice tips. When you have a service in Azure, it is a PaaS service, meaning it is Microsoft managed. Microsoft managed means it's in this sort of shared area. It's not in your VNet, your area, your subscription, right? And you're accessing it. By default, it's connected on the edge. So it's edge services for them to communicate with each other. And it has a public IP address for you to get into it. A lot of people want to sever that public IP address and bring it into your own and have it private. So this is where you control it. So each of those services have a firewall option here where you can say, by default, it will say all networks. You can say selected or you can disable it. In this case, I restricted it down to some IP addresses that I wanted to, and then I checked the box that says allow Azure services, the trusted services, because remember we were talking about those monitoring and alerts and all those logs. Those things happen in the background, and those are Azure services, so you want them to allow it to talk to each other, right? The other thing that's happened.
Is it possible to allow a resource group to access the API?
The resource group?
Yeah, for example, if I'm creating a machine, set a resource group, and maybe that machine is maybe the IPs are cheating, it's possible to assign to give access to the whole resource group.
You can put a CIDR range in here. It's an IP address or a CIDR. So if they're changing and you have a block, you could do that. Yeah. So you can also create the private endpoint. And the private endpoint, this was created for us automatically with the hub, so you don't have to do this. But this just basically says that all of those connections that are happening behind the scenes to make this work is happening privately within VNet, right? So those 3 things were the things that made it private. And then remember we said RBAC. So now the key doesn't work, right? So guess what? We broke stuff when we did that because now a lot of things don't have access anymore. So then you have to go and give access. So we'll just do view my access so you can see this. I have a lot of extra, but I'm also an owner in the subscription. So anyway, but here you can see I granted search index data contributor to the cloud engineers, data reader, search contributor. Those were the things that were required, least privilege. So all the way through, it's least privilege, right? If you don't grant it, it's not there until you grant it. And then I have a group. We always do everything with groups, right? So if Grant leaves the company, I don't have to go hunt his name down everywhere I ever added him. I just take him out of the group, right? All right. So I've been talking a lot and probably boring. So let's go back to our presentation so we can wrap this up, right? So that was my demo, and feel free to ask questions. Yeah. All right. Just to recap, we went over the Azure AI Studio. There's a lot of good stuff in there. It's a tool to help you deploy quickly. If you're new and just getting started, you might like that graphical interface. If you're a seasoned developer, you might be like, I just need VS Code and I don't care, right? So it has this, the tools for the responsible AI built in for you to help you evaluate and iterate the whole prompt flow thing to get you to production faster, right? We, just want to highlight, the tracing and debugging, phenomenal. Every little detail you could possibly want to. custom evaluators. You can bring your own questions. So if you had like a series of 10 questions that you're testing on your data, you can use that and maybe more. There's built-in ones as well. And then the monitoring that we saw, right? Those are some very top new features that I don't know about the other guys out there, but it really ties the whole studio in as this one source to get all of this good information in at once. And then I gave you some tips and tricks on how to lock down your system and make it private, take off the private access. Local auth is, disabling the key and then granting it back with Azure RBAC permissions. I'll let you know, when I did all this and I locked it down, I had to go through those logs to figure out why I broke what I broke, to figure out which permissions. Even though I read the docs, it still can be confusing. But we have code that will deploy it for you, so you don't have to figure it out, right? And finally, if you want to learn more, because it's an ever-changing world, we run Azure virtual training days, lots of topics. These are the AI ones. I gave you the Scan Me code for just directly on the AI. There's some upcoming sessions. And with that, I thank you so much for listening to me babble on. And I will take any questions if you have. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, let's give it up for Jen. What a great presentation. I don't know if you can hear me. Let me go ahead and grab this one. Testing, testing. Anyways, what a great presentation was that, right? Oh my gosh. I think we all learned a lot more about Azure AI Studio. So again, thank you so much. We do this every single week where we bring leaders and prominent people within the community and within the AI space generally to present so that we can all learn from one another and stay ahead of the AI wave, right? So thank you again, everyone, for coming. We have drinks in the back. We have chips as well. I want to give you a little talk about what's going to be happening for the next 2 weeks. So next week, we'll be talking about the fundamentals of PyTorch. If anyone's looking to learn more about how to, maybe develop your own large language model, we'll be having Tad Duval. He'll be teaching us some more about that. We'll also be having Alex Comerford. He'll be helping with teaching us as well. So he was part of the team that helped build the Bloomberg AI terminal over there. So really, really knows his stuff. And we'll also be having Patrick Devani. And the week after that, we'll be having Micah Berkeley right over here. We'll be talking about, practical use cases and AI entrepreneurship. How can you essentially build your own products, make money, et cetera, by utilizing technologies that exist. And I don't want to take too much from that, but again, it's going to be a great one. So again, thank you so much. What we're going to, if possible, if we can all just tag at GP Tuesday and the hub, take pictures and share your pictures on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. It'll mean a lot to all of us. And without further ado, let's just take one picture, take one group picture, shall we? And we'll go ahead and just get to networking and conversations. Again, thank you so much. Thank you again so much, Jen.
Thank you.
Amazing presentation.
A little long, but
Oh, it was great. I mean, we kind of need it, right, to go through all of it.
yeah.
Appreciate it.
Quiet today. Y'all are too quiet.
Let's get that picture, everyone.
How's everyone doing? High five. Good job.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Much, I think.
Huh?
Like pitches.
Oh, so we'll be trying to do those at some point. Who should take a picture, though? Let's see. All right, if everyone can get up here, we're going to take a group picture if possible for everyone. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Yeah, so which way should we face? That way or this way? What do you think? Yeah.
I mean, it don't matter.
Yeah, everyone can go up here. Great. Great.
We can change it up. I mean,
Yeah.
flip it.
Yeah, screw it. Let's flip it.
We can sit on the couch and everything.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Actually, if everyone wants to go over here, that's perfect. There we go.
Yeah.
Cool.
You can sit on the couch.